Hey guys, it's Paradise, and how did your favorite weapon feel in Monster Hunter Wilds during the recent beta? Was it underwhelming or overpowered? And well, the dev team have vowed to make changes on certain weapons, and we have already spoken about how there will be buffs coming for the Lance, Switch Axe, Insect Glaive, and Sword and Shield. We have already seen some of the Insect Glaive's buffs with the return of the Vaulting Dance, which is of course a fan favorite move, most commonly referred to as its bounce, but the Capcom team have been talking about their balancing philosophy, with some weapons receiving nerfs and other weapons undergoing significant changes. This is all super interesting stuff that we have found, and it's very cool as a Monster Hunter fan, as it is rare to see developers talk candidly about weapon balancing for a game that hasn't even released yet, so we thought we would share this with you as we love it too. Let's jump into the details as quickly as possible, and you can tell us what you want from your main weapon down below. The first thing that needs to be highlighted is something that Tokida said in a group interview with various different outlets. He spoke about how they were tackling the weapon balancing after the beta, since there were various weapons that were outliers compared to others in terms of performance, ease of use, and damage, creating a big disparity between them and other weapons. In an interview with Automation Media, Tokida said, "Our policy is to increase the strength of weak weapons rather than to decrease the performance of the strong weapons." We think this is a great way to go about balancing weapons, as there is a target for games to hit, where the game is fun to play but also challenging. Although this can be hard, as games are also a power fantasy. We always think of it as there being a sweet spot where games have to balance all three of these things to make you feel powerful, which leads into the fun aspect, but also keeping that challenge that makes the game feel rewarding. Think about any RPG you've played, from Final Fantasy to Mass Effect and more, where you gain power as you progress towards the end of the game and you start to feel like a boss because you've gained power in the form of various gameplay tools and knowledge. However, some game developers often put the focus on the challenging part, and this means they often nerf anything that pushes the boundaries. In our opinion, this causes the game to fall out of this sweet spot, as you no longer feel extremely powerful, and that can make the game a bit boring. Any of the weapons that felt severely underpowered in the beta are a good example of this, so it's really nice to see they're focusing more on buffing than on nerfing. However, that doesn't mean there won't be some nerfs, as being too powerful can just make the game too easy, which means there won't be any challenge for players, and thus things get boring. We do have some hints for which weapons will be nerfed or adjusted, as in a Games Radar article, Tokida said the following: "Some weapons like the longsword and bow are too easy to use and overpowered." He explains we will be adjusting the damage range so that they are more balanced compared to other weapons, while making sure they still feel good to use. Now, it's no lie, the bow was very powerful in the beta, but the actual playstyle of it did feel great, so hopefully they maintain the majority of what made it fun. We're guessing the first target of the bow nerfs will probably be the infinite charge level 3 shots you get when a tracer is active, but of course we'll have to wait and see. We do feel quite bad for the longsword players out there though. This is because in the demo it wasn't even the best performing or most easy to use weapon. There are a number of weapons ahead of it in terms of the top speedrun ranking charts, meaning it isn't as powerful as the bow, the gun lance, or even the charge blade, which all have under 4-minute runtimes as well. The director of the game basically said that the longsword is overpowered and easy to use, but we do know that some of the haters in the community will use that to drum up friction for longsword mains, which have been targeted since the dawn of time with its tripping and the overall strength of the weapon. Don't get us wrong, we do agree many aspects of the longsword do need a nerf. For example, it was a bit over-tuned with the hyper armor on the Helmraker thrust as well as the Spirit Release, but we will have to wait and see where these changes land. We know a bit more about some of the buffs coming up, and we have already mentioned in a recent video that the Switch Axe will be getting a significant rework, as the flow for the full release will be getting a significant buff, as players felt the general flow of the weapon wasn't as rewarding, with the sword mode not dealing much more damage than the axe mode, and the full release being spammed. So it's very likely this is going to get tweaked. Meanwhile, for the lance, it seems like it will be getting a major overhaul, perhaps more significantly than other weapons that have been getting buffs like the Insect Glaive and Sword and Shield. In a Games Radar article, they said, I was advised not to hunt with the lance during the 5-hour preview. This has to be targeted harassment. Is this about the security thing? But wait, only because the lance and switch axe are getting big updates in the full game, so it's pointless to get a feel of them now. Capcom said that the weapon actions will be updated. The sword and shield insect glaives are also getting tweaks, although they are more minor ones compared to the version in the build they had access to. But forget about them and tell us more about the lance overhaul. So that is a funny one, but it's great to hear that the lance is getting quite a good amount of tweaks. So if you didn't like how the lance felt in the beta, then rejoice, as it seems like they're giving the lance the full treatment by adapting the Wild's moveset to be more in line with that of the player's feedback. So could this mean we see the return of counter thrust? We know that they will be improving guarding, as he did say the things we thought might be really difficult become evident when users get their hands on it in the beta. For example, guarding at different angles and reacting accordingly. Those edits will be implemented in the final version. There were a few things that we did find weird on the lance, even though we still had a lot of fun with it. The most noticeable was the powerful follow-up dash attack that was super clunky to pull off. Hopefully this move is completely changed or the execution is improved. It would be nice to see the lance near the top of the performance charts for once, and it really is due some much needed love, so we will be championing this weapon as much as possible on the channel for those lance mains out there. While not directly related to straight up damaging skills, we do know that some of the friendly fire moves like the hammer's launch of other players and the gun lance blasts being nerfed or buffed depending on how you look at it by removing the ability to knock over or launch other players. We personally loved this as it always made for some funny and comedic moments in the past games, and even Ryozo was a champion of this in various streams where he would mess around with it. In an Automation Media interview, Tokida explained the reasoning here. He said the reason we implemented explosions that can blast you away in Monster Hunter in the past was because we wanted people to play the game while taking into account both the positive and negative repercussions that they can have. However, we have perceived that players' attitudes towards friendly fire has changed, and this is one of the reasons. After all, it's no fun if one of your teammate blows up another in multiplayer, either on purpose or by accident, just as you were about to bring down a large monster. And Tokida has noted, of course we talked to Sujimoto, who is believed to have won the most people in the world over with his dedication to the hammer, about whether we should change it. Well, the reasoning here is quite understandable, but we are still sad to see it go. All in all, there's some super interesting things on the horizon for Monster Hunter Wilds, and this is setting up Wilds to be the best Monster Hunter yet. We like how Tokida, Fujioka, and Ryozo are all being vocal about the feedback and explaining these changes. But for now, tell us what you think about these changes down below and the friendly fire changes. And drop a like if you did enjoy this video. Here at Arekkz Gaming, we're two friends who love to play games. You have me, Paradise, as well as 2-6.
Our goal is to keep the videos as concise as possible by cutting out any of the fluff and focusing on what really matters with high quality videos.
So make sure you're subscribed down below for more videos on your favorite games coming very, very soon.